Hey there, youth and youth families. Welcome to what might be the final table talk time of the season. I don't know. We're hoping that we'll be back in person for a long time, but we are starting our in-person services again on Monday for junior youth, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. It's a little bit different than before, just to accommodate some of the new regulations and stuff. We'll be shifting that around as time goes. And senior youth on Wednesday nights from 7:30 to 8:30. We're looking forward to seeing you in person, but thank you for coming back for this final time of Table Talk, where we are talking about confession. Now, in our first session, we talked a little bit about how sin has a power to isolate us and give us this feeling of shame, and how confession is an important part of having victory over that. We talked a little bit about how confession makes us aware of the seriousness of sin. And finally, today we want to talk a little bit about how confession provides us with a sense of community, accountability, and brings us to a place of restoration. Let me read this passage of scripture for you from James chapter 5. It says, "My brothers and sisters, if any of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their ways will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins." What an important part, an important kind of instruction, just saying the importance of us to be in this kind of place where we are working with each other through our stumblings. Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you ever feel stuck? You know, are you one of the people that might be wandering? Or are you someone who is hooked on sin? If you are, let me share with you something that I've learned over the last few years as I've been studying. One of the things I've come to realize, and I never realized this before, but they say that addiction, that the opposite of addiction isn't actually sobriety or not doing the thing that we're addicted to. The opposite of addiction is actually feeling connected. Community is kind of the opposite. It's really quite interesting that they say, they've shown that people who feel connected to other people, like in a church is an important place, they're way less likely to become addicted to, well, pretty much anything. You know, something that I've discovered in most cases when I've talked to people who are hooked or stuck in sin is many of them got there by pursuing some sort of unmet need. Now, an unmet need that's from within us that is actually filled by God, they look to fill it in a different way. And a need that is filled by God and often most readily available in community with other people who are seeking God. So confession becomes an important part of building that community as we're kind of wandering from some of those things. Because the reality is we're not mind readers, right? And I don't know when you are silently struggling with sin. However, confession is speaking up and asking our community to support us and help us heal from the effects of sin. And in essence, it also gives us not only just a sense of a community, but also a sense of accountability, people that can walk with us. One of the things that I notice about all of this is you don't even have to wait to a time when you're really messing it up to exercise confession. Let me give you an example. You know, I know some of the dangers that are within our technology. There's a real gateway to all kinds of temptation. And recognizing that there would be the temptation there, whenever I get a new device, one of the first things that I'll do is I'll go to a trusted friend and I'll get them to set the parental controls and a password on it so I don't even have to worry about temptation, because I know I'm a human. I know that I'm a person. I know that I have unmet needs that all desire to fill an easier way than connecting with God, which I know is the designed way. So I invite other people to walk alongside me. It doesn't mean that I am a bad person. It doesn't even mean that I screwed up or I'm struggling with sin. It just means that I'm aware that the temptation is there and I would confess that to another person so I have their accountability and support. You know, let me tell you another story that confession also has a power to also release us from when we're trapped in a sin. And it's an important part of building community. I remember back to high school, I was working for a camp, and I remember there was one evening where just a bunch of us as camp workers got together and we were sitting around a fireside. There's 13 guys, 13 teenage guys all standing here together. And one guy pipes up about a struggle that he's working on in his life and how it's really been troublesome for him and how he's had a difficult time kicking a habit. Well, the interesting thing is he spoke up and he confessed his struggle. Then the next person, then the next person. The next thing you know, around this circle, almost everyone had shared that they were struggling with the exact same thing. Now, one of the interesting things about this neat community that formed around this confession was, I don't know about the rest guys. I've heard their stories, and I know that a lot of them, you know, kind of found the same freedom that I found. And all of a sudden, these temptations and these struggles were no longer a big deal. They weren't a challenge anymore because we had the support and community of each other, and my secret was out, and the support was in. I wonder if you need one of those fireside times where you can just come and be with other people and say, hey, I'm struggling, and find that support. You know, it's not to say that you'll never struggle again, you know, if you find a place like this, but one of the things you will discover is it is a place where you can find encouragement and support in our times of struggle. Let me close off with these thoughts. One of the things I just want to acknowledge is confession is a scary spiritual discipline. It's a huge relational risk to let someone into the dark parts of our life, the shameful parts of our life. However, isolation and sin are way more dangerous than the risk of confession. I'd like to think of, in the context of this, when I think about the idea of encouragement, I think of encouragement is this thing that we do with each other when we get close enough to another person that we can literally pour courage into them. And you can see how that fits together with confession. It really is inviting someone to get close enough to you that they can pour a little bit of courage into you as you press on towards freedom. So let's put a bookend on the regret and shame that we feel. And let's take some time to reflect on what you've learned this week in regards to confession. And why don't you take some time to share with someone that you trust? Hey, thanks for joining us for these times of table talk. I hope they've been a help to you in this time when we hadn't been able to meet together in person. And I just want to wish you one final blessing on your day.